First of all, let's run through some of the front pages. As I say, it's been a very busy news agenda this weekend. The Sunday Telegraph goes with that story of Daniel Khalife, terror suspect laughed after arrest. Sunday Times has got a very good story on the front, which we'll be dealing with in just a moment. Commons Chinese spy arrested. I'll be speaking to my paper reviewer about that momentarily. The Observer revealed new NatWest boss linked to Saudi scandal firm. So that's the newly appointed chairman. Seems to be in a degree of hot water already. The Mail on Sunday, spooks bugs phones to nail jailbreak spy. This is about how the security services, MI5, MI6 and others all collaborated to try and catch Daniel Khalife. The Sunday Express, again, goes with that story. Police catch fugitive on canal bike ride. This is him being, I think, in Chiswick and then trying to make his way to Norfolk. Sun on Sunday simply says, got him, which I suppose is a tabloid way of summing up the story. And then again, the Mirror, same story. Terror fugitive bragged, I'll escape, just watch me. Well, without further ado, let me bring into the conversation Sam Lister. She's political editor of the Daily Express. Lovely to see you this morning, Sam. You've had a busy week, haven't you? With
first week back, yeah.
First week.
Always a busy one.
Concrete crises. We've got Rishi Sunak in India. We've got this escapee who's now being caught. Let's talk about that story which the Sunday Express, your sister paper, has splashed. He's been found, but having mentioned concrete and other matters, it's not been the greatest look for the government this week, sort of losing control of this terror suspect.
It hasn't, and the first week back of a new parliamentary kind of term usually is a point where the government tries to set the agenda. And actually what's happened is that with the school's concrete crisis, that dominated the first few days, and then obviously with Khalife's escape, that's dominated the back end of the week. Now, the problem for the government is that this just, even though technically it may not be the fault, it may be the fault of the prison governor and the people who were working in Wandsworth jail, on a kind of very practical front, it plays into that greater sense of this government is losing control of things, and that's a real problem for them. Now, Alex Chalk is obviously on your show later on. He will say, well, look, we've got 2 investigations, we can't really say anything until they report back. But actually, a lot of people are saying, this is a wider problem. This is something that's been around for a decade. We've had
the prison service.
The prison service, problems in the prison service. And actually, I had a quick look back at Chris Grayling when he was in charge.
Nickname Failing Grayling.
Absolutely. And he obviously imposed cuts at the time of austerity. And even in 2014, he was having to deny in 2014 that the prison system was in crisis because there was a rise in suicides, there was an increase in prison violence. These things did not look great at the time. A decade on, obviously, you kind of reap what you sow on these things. So I think it is a problem for the government. Also, I think one of the big problems is, and I know you touched on it earlier, that the number of experienced police officers, prison officers, diminished greatly around that time, and it left a lot of younger prison officers in charge. What was the thing then?
Grayling brought in his reforms. He tried to squeeze the workforce, and a lot of them just said, "Oh, sod this, I'm going to retire." And then that's left inexperienced younger people trying to deal with inmates that might be hardened criminals. They've been inside for longer than the prison officers.
Exactly. Longer than they've been born in some occasions, and they are green. They are more open to kind of being threatened by those prisoners. So they are not. They don't have the experience to deal with those hardened criminals.
We're once again going to have an investigation because we've got questions to answer that will no doubt say lessons have been learned until the next person escapes from a prison.
Indeed.
The other not particularly great story for the government that's in the front of the Sunday Times, we've called it spy in the ointment. I mean, that's to put it mildly, right? This idea that we've had 1 or 2 Chinese Chinese spies acting as researchers. I mean, the fact that they've penetrated the security systems at the House of Commons is one thing, but equally, the fact that they've got close to 2 key MPs explain the significance of who they may have been working for and what they might have found out.
Well, this is the thing. It's Tom Tugendhat, who is the Security Minister, Alicia Kearns, who chairs the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. And these are people who are very kind of hawkish on China. And the researcher apparently is very close to those, or was very close to those 2 MPs. Now, I think Tom Tugendhat's people have made it clear that actually, once he became Security Minister, there was no contact with this particular researcher.
But then you don't know what the researchers managed to pick up out of any of the governmental or other files.
Indeed. And actually, although this is a researcher based in Parliament, so they don't have access to government, secrets and that kind of thing. It is somebody who will be well placed to pick up all the gossip.
Yes.
That's a key thing. And also the direction of travel that these MPs who object to our current relationship with China, the way they want to kind of proceed on that. And so this person was in a key position, really, to get that information.
You're right
for
about
China.
the kind of ear to the ground, because actually, if you're just in and around MPs, you're picking up so much stuff that isn't written down, and you might be in Portcullis House hearing some of the gossip and what the different MPs think about each other, which could be damaging in terms of our reputation overseas. I'm interested by Rishi Sunak's reaction to this morning. Because we had the briefing from the spokesman saying, he's taken this up with the Chinese Premier. And then he adds that into a broadcast. What's he trying to achieve with that, do you think?
Well, he's trying to appease the very hawkish China MPs in his party. He said that he took this to Premier Li. He's confronted Premier Li about this. Premier Li is attending in the place of President Xi, who has refused to go to the G20. But Rishi Sunak has had this meeting. He has raised this with him. He wants to show he's not soft on China. But by the same token, he also is defending the government's position. He says there's no point not engaging with China. You have to deal with the realities of the world. China is a huge, important global player.
He's a bit more pragmatic about it than, say, some...
He really is.
IDS and others who would rather we didn't have any relations at all. But then he's one of many MPs that have been placed under sanctions by China. So what do you do? We must just talk about the earthquake tragedy in Morocco. The Sun's headline there pretty much summing it up. It was like someone picked up the hotel room and shook it. I mean, in many respects, of course, we're always obsessed with domestic matters and our own politics, but this is the biggest story of the weekend, really. Thousands of deaths in Morocco.
At least 2,000 people. I mean, it's absolutely tragic. I think the Sun, the picture, they've got a picture spread, and I think that really sums it up. The picture just shows
with her head in her hand.
Shows the absolute devastation. It really is a tragedy. And it is at times like this that the UK and other nations will obviously be there assisting Morocco in this time of need.
Let's talk about the opposition now. We're calling it a Keir crackdown. It's not necessarily an interview he's given to the Sunday Times, but let's be honest, Tim Shipman seems to have had a fairly generous briefing from sources close to the Labour leader, in which he is saying that only he can bring order to the border. Do you believe him, Sam?
Well, I mean, this is the big question, is it? Will voters believe him? That's the truth. I think it's interesting they've gone for order for the border. They're obviously trying to ape the Conservatives with... Obviously, the Conservatives over the last few years have had very successful elections based around catchy slogans, take back control, for example.
Yeah. It's interesting. It might be an appeal. It might be an appeal to this viewer and listenership at GBNews. And I'd like to give a message now to the Labour leader. If you want to come on and address the GB audience directly, there's a lovely warm seat for you here. We can have a nice Q&A session, maybe do a yes or no game that we quite like playing with top politicians. So please do come in. You're always welcome.
And I think, actually, there will be a point, Camilla, where he does take you up on that. Because
he'll have to.
This is the thing.
Because our audience demands it and deserves it.
But the Labour Party, they are desperate to win. They want to win. And they are now engaging with the parts of the media that they, certainly under the Corbyn era, did not engage with, because they know that they have to reach out to particularly red wall voters, people who haven't trusted them in the past on immigration. So I think it's very interesting that they are now trying to show they are tough on it. I think what the Conservatives will say is, actually, this is a man who has... In 2020, he signed a letter against the deportation of foreign criminals.
They want to put him in the lefty lawyer camp.
Absolutely, that he opposes the Rwanda policy, for example.
Talking of lefties, former Tory MP Rory Stewart has given an interview to this esteemed channel in which he's talked about anguish MPs trying to kill themselves. Just a very quick word on that, Sam, because time is of the essence. He's spoken to Gloria Del Piero. It's going to be playing in Michael Portillo's show after my show at 11. But does he have a point?
Yeah.
MPs suicidal? Is it social media to blame and the pressure that they face from public scrutiny, do you think?
I don't think it's actually social media, really. I mean, that is a terrible part of the job. But what it is Parliament is a pressure cooker, and particularly since Brexit and COVID, MPs were being forced to vote for things that they just didn't agree with. And they've been put up under enormous pressure, and they've really struggled, actually. I think some people have had a really tough time.
All right, well, stay tuned for that, because that'll be a good interview in the next show.